adui mkubwa kwa ujenzi wa taifa, kwani ndicho kiini hasa kisababisha chonja. Ewe ndugu yangu we, amka kumekucha, kamata jembe na panga, twende shamba.
School allows us to not only open our minds but our hearts to new people and new experiences. This is where each of us is shaped and molded to become who we are today. How does the change of the education system determine our future? Join me as I explore the changes in the education system in Kenya. My name is Ashley Wangare.
Show the world that some of them...
Now, in 1967, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania formed the East African Community with a single system of education, the 7-4-2-3, a system that comprised 7 years of primary education, 4 years of secondary school, 2 years of high school, and 3 to 5 years of university education. In this system, students sat for a regional examination known as the East African Certificate of Primary Education, EACPE, and secondary exams were called East African Advanced Certificate of Education Examination, EAACEE. 8 years later, in 1985, the 844 system was adopted, which consisted of 8 years of primary education. That's when CPE became KCPE, Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, while KCE became KCSE, and then 4 years of university, and it has remained like that ever since up until May 2017, when the new Competency Based curriculum was adopted.
Hata wewe mwanangu, amka kumekucha, kwani hizi ndizo saa za kwenda shule.
In 2006, the government of Kenya initiated plans to review the education system. The Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development came up with a proposal to replace 844 with 2663, also known as the Competency Based curriculum.
Ewe ndugu yangu we, amka kumekucha, kamata jembe na panga.
An interaction with the chairperson of the KICD as well as the director reveals the steps that were followed during the conceptualization of the new system.
As the government shifts its focus on its citizens, building their capacity to not just participate in their national plan, but also to contribute on Kenya's Vision 2030, one of the key pillars identified for reforms is the education system. The Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development has been on top of this, crafting a new system that would replace the over 30 years old 844 system.
Kenya is changing education curriculum after more than 30 years of the previous system. What has triggered change?
We don't change curriculum because one curriculum is bad and another one is good. We change curriculum because the changes taking place in the society demand that we change accordingly and align ourselves to the changing times.
Education has been one of the driving forces for the future of any country. Kenya's vision of realizing Vision 2030 is pegged on the basis of competing with the world standards of competency. After more than 30 years, the education experts have deemed the 844 curriculum as unfit for learning in the 21st century. In its place, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development has put in place the CBC, which is a competency-based curriculum structured as 2663, which is meant to prepare students to be efficient and functioning members of the society. It ensures that students with different learning styles as well as goals and expectations fit in the new curriculum. President Uhuru Kenyatta has since been critical of the teacher-censored system, which pundits accuse of not providing requisite skills to the learners. The head of state compares this kind of system as one that imposes certain skills on students, even if their interests are taken care of in the other fields.
I believe you teachers should be the greatest warriors in assisting us to reshape our curriculum in order to ensure that those children who have lost hope are able to regain hope and confidence that their future is bright and that there are opportunities for them out there. Because I believe that at the end of the day is the dream of every teacher, of every parent. And that is the objective that we have here today. To help train and impart knowledge that our children can use, that our children can take advantage of, to become positive contributors to themselves and society in future.
This competency-based curriculum has been said by educationists to be learner-centered and adaptive to the changing needs of students, teachers, and society. The creators of the CBC envision that at the end of the learning period, every learner should have achieved competencies such as critical thinking and problem-solving, learning to learn, imagination and creativity, digital literacy, communication and collaboration, citizenship, and self-efficacy.
Amka kumekucha, kamata jembe na panga, twende shamba. Hata wewe mwanangu, amka.
The Search Comprehensive Schools is one of the schools in Kiambu County that have started to implement the government's directive on the CBC. We seek to know what the facilitators think about this new system.
We established that the system is well distinguished from other curricula since it embodies the approach of defining competencies, the design of the courses and programs taught in the curriculum, support given to the learners, as well as the assessment of the students.
So what you see here is called a rubric. It's for the learners' assessment. Before we had topics and subtopics. Now we have strads and substrad.
The CBC focuses on learning areas which include English, Kiswahili or Kenya Sign Language for learners who have hearing impairment, home science, agriculture, science and technology, mathematics, Christian religious education, Islamic religious education, Hindu religious education, music, art and craft, physical and health education, social studies, foreign languages which include Arabic, French, German, Mandarin, indigenous languages.
They have introduced digital literacy, which is making the children eager to learn more on YouTube and all that. We also have different activities that we do. We don't only work with the books only. We also go out, like the grade 3 were doing the activity of sweeping the market, which they really enjoyed. There are no additional subjects, they only changed the names. Like we have mathematics activities, environmental activities, which based social and science. Then we have hygiene and nutrition, which also is a new term, but the same subjects. And then we have English literacy, we have Kiswahili, shughuli za Kiswahili. Yeah, those are the terms they use for the subject.
But as the government continues to project the good expectations from the skill-based system of education, a section of stakeholders among the Kenya National Union of Teachers have questioned the government's preparedness while urging teachers to stay away from what they term as the money-wasting exercise.
Na kama vile mnenaji wa chama aliposema, hatubanduki, tumesimama ngangari. Tumeeleza vilivyo mapungufu ya mtaala huu, na sisi ndo wataalam katika mintarafu ya mambo ya elimu. Tunaposema jambo hili si nzuri, tuna hakika tuna ukweli. Na mwaulize mwajiri, muulize ndugu yetu Magoha, ukiwa na mfanyikazi wako nyumbani na akwambie katika shamba hili kuna mambo haya si mazuri. Kama wewe ni mwajiri mwenye akili, msikize, muulize yule mfanyikazi kuna shida gani.
NAT Secretary General is on record opposing the implementation of the CBC, alluding to the inadequacy of teachers, as well as citing that the country is not ready for curriculum change.
Tulisema mambo ya tarakilishi ama laptop, lakini sasa inajulikana tulikuwa tunasema mambo ya haki. Kweli ama urongo? Kweli. Pili, because laptop is at 5% success. 5% and 70 billion. You can force it. Hata Biblia wasema, you can take a cow to a river, but you cannot force it to do what? To drink water. From that biblical perspective, we've never rolled out a curriculum in acrimony in this country. And that cannot succeed anywhere. And the train that left the station without the captain will not stop at the next station. It is likely to crash. I'm giving you an example. South Africa. If teachers boycotted and the whole thing collapsed. And finally, the question is, will Magoha teach? Will he teach in every classroom in Kenya? Every classroom in Kenya. It is the teachers. And the teachers have spoken. And we've made it very clear. We will teach using the normal pedagogical method that we were trained. And that's the advice we've given out.
Curriculum is just a chapter. Now, the only legal document you need to reform the curriculum is the Constitution, Education Act, like in Kenya, KCD Act, NEC Act, TSC Act, that defines the role of each of those institutions. Now, the other thing that NAT raised is that for you to reform the curriculum, you need a commission. Now, the last commission we had in this country was called the Odhiambo Task Force, the Odhiambo Commission. Okay. Their recommendations were turned into, documents, session of paper, and all that. Okay. We have had commissions that have made recommendations that have never been implemented. Right from Ominde Commission in 1964, technical subjects were, but they were never implemented. So, it is good practice, but there's no legal instrument that says that you must embrace CBC.
The government, early in 2018, started a comprehensive teacher training program that aimed at onboarding the instructors to the tenets of the new curriculum. At the end of the training, all teachers were expected to acquire the knowledge, skills, and attitudes necessary for effective implementation of the CBC, apply innovative pedagogical approaches and models, demonstrate competencies in assessment, and be self-reflective, self-improving, and supportive of learners themselves. CBC, just like any other curricula, is projected to face a lot of challenges identified by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Among the challenges identified is the high monetary resources needed in the piloting and the rollout processes.
The capacity has to be looked at in a number of ways. One is the capacity in terms of the levels of training and skills of the instructors to deliver the CBC curriculum. And that's where, your previous issue about pedagogy comes in. There has to be a lot of retraining of teachers because delivering an exam-oriented system and the CBC system are not one and the same thing. And the skill sets for you as a teacher or as an instructor to deliver that have to be different. And of course, the people who are going to be, delivering this new system are the same people who were in the previous system. So there has to be a lot of training or retraining. And that's the same even for universities. As we move into more competency-based assessment systems, we have to retrain ourselves because a lot of us were trained under the old system and we've been teaching the old system. So one capacity issue is that of the capacity of the instructors, their skills to deliver this CBC. The other capacity issue is of course the materials that you develop for CBC. The materials cannot be the same as the materials that were used for a much more exam-driven system. So a lot of the teaching materials themselves have to be revised, have to be developed anew, and that is a capacity issue as well.
A competency-based curriculum requires a different environment and resources that may not be available in some communities and government schools. Areas that have been identified to be emphasized on is the arid and semi-arid areas. Other quarters have also said that the rush in implementation should be halted since the CBC is a whole new approach to the learning design. The new curriculum content requires modern classrooms, smart boards, laboratories, creative centers, and technologies at all levels. Despite the curriculum being already in place with up to grade 3 pupils already absorbed in the system, these infrastructures have not been put in place.
Changing the curriculum is not dependent on having 100% everything that you want. If that was the case, no country will change its curriculum. The main thing is that give the curriculum that is suitable to the times and needs of the society. Let then the infrastructure that is required follow the curriculum. So that is the way it is, because I've seen people say, do we have enough infrastructure? I tell them, which ones?
For example, Director, we have seen the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor Magoha, closing down a number of schools which have, for a reason, had poor infrastructure, poor structures of learning. So, can we be sure as Kenyans that the schools are really ready to take?
That has nothing to do with the curriculum. Curriculum will change with the infrastructure. Actually, even if you are learning under tree, the curriculum you'll be given should be relevant. So if our learners are already disadvantaged that some don't have enough infrastructure, then you give them a curriculum that was for the previous century, then it's double jeopardy. So you'd rather give them the correct curriculum and then they learn under that kind of environment. In fact, I liked what the president said the other day when we were launching, when we had the conference. He'd rather a child learns under a tree than coming to sniff glue in the streets of Nairobi. But they get the correct values, the correct ethics, and the correct learning that can inspire them to do something. So that even if you live there and you're simply able to be a carpenter, you'd rather be a carpenter than giving you a curriculum that does not give you that flexibility. I mean, I'm sure this, my chair has already discussed with, that's why I don't have to go into it.
The recent cases of a primary school in Kibra whose structure was brought down by excessive weather conditions. The situation caused a number of students to lose their lives, making the Cabinet Secretary for Education, George Magoha, to close down the school. What followed was a similar crackdown on schools whose structures appeared faulty and were posing a danger to school-going children. However, government officials insist the state is committed and ready to implement the CBC despite the challenges in place. Another challenge is the issue of teacher knowledge on CBC pedagogy. While teachers had understood CBC model, a good number of them were struggling with the concept and lacked the capacity demanded by the curriculum. Teachers at the such school are part of the cohorts that have undergone training to keep them informed of the requirements of the new curriculum. Middle-level, tertiary institutions, technical and vocational training institutions, being the ones that will receive graduates from upper secondary schools in the CBC education design, are slowly adapting this model of education so as to stay on top of the government requirements as well as regulations by the Commission for University Education.
That the universities themselves need to make that transition in terms of how they assess students, because in a very few short years, the kinds of students that will be coming to universities will be different from the students that have been coming to universities thus far. They'll be coming from this competency-based educational system in which continuous assessment is the way in which they are assessed. While, of course, the ones we've been dealing with from examination systems, and we've been, of course, we ourselves very dependent on examinations as a way of making judgments, as a way of saying you have mastered this and you can move to the next level and that kind of thing. So universities themselves need to move away from an exam-based assessment system into a competency-based assessment system.
For you to go to the university today, for those of you who are Kenyans, you must pass maths, you must pass English, 2 sciences, and Kiswahili. 5 subjects mandatory. What about if you just wanted to become a musician? What do you want to do with some of those subjects?
Talent.
I don't know whether you knew about the Naipe sisters. They started singing in church.
Okay.
They are now doing their degree in the US. Why? Because all they wanted to do was music. You watch Churchill and all these people, Mundi and Galango and all that. If you just want to become a comedian, what do you need to pass some of those subjects for in this day and age? And are you telling me those people are not happy? Are they happy? Actually, we call some of them celebrities. So what we need is a flexible curriculum that appreciates that we are different.
USIU Africa is one such institution that is designing its programs to suit the current needs in the job market while keeping instructional facilities at the very high.
All right.
The Vice-Chancellor, Professor Paul Zeleza, says that the university is already implementing skill-based learning practices which align the provisions of CBC.
We build infrastructures, pedagogical infrastructures in universities that allow for people to come in and out of higher education. And in a world in which universities will no longer enjoy monopoly over certification, because when you look at it, a degree is a signal to the market. Is a signal to the market to say, Hudson Amenya went to USIU for 4 years and we assume he learned something in those 4 years. And therefore, this is to open the door towards employment. Now, the employment market is changing so rapidly. They will be looking for, you have this predictive analytics where they can, it's not just a question of you showing your degree, but what are the skill sets you have developed when you were a student and after a student in the curricular aspects of your learning in the classroom, that is, as well as co-curricular activities. So all this e-portfolio of you, of your skills and competencies that we have acquired in the classroom, on campus, in the community, that will be part of your package. It's no longer, therefore, going to be whether you got a BA with cum laude or just ordinary pass.
Proposers of CBC have associated it with a number of advantages, placing it ahead of other models of education. The model is said to be cost-effective since training activities and assessments in a competency-based approach are goal-oriented and focus on areas identified as requiring performance improvement only.
When you see a child is excelling outside the class, and other children recognize that indeed they have done something good, the self-worth and the confidence improves a lot. Yes. So my take is confidence level and also the issue of being independent. Because in classwork, there's not a lot of independence. Because you are taught, in fact, you are what they call, on a better term, they are stagnant. They can't express themselves. But outside, they express themselves. Okay.
The other advantage of competency-based education is that a student, say at USIU or any university, can move at their own pace. Most universities have a cohort model where you're all freshmen, you're all sophomores, you're all juniors, and then seniors.
Also, when employees are competent in meeting their work objectives, know what the performance expectations are, receive recognition for their abilities, and have insight into the overall strategy of the department and institution, they are usually more motivated and experience higher job satisfaction. Employees who have been trained and assessed using a competency-based approach are, by definition, able to perform the required tasks associated with the job. The knock-on effect is that in service-related industries, they are able to provide high service levels, thereby increasing customer satisfaction. Other countries have also been able to adopt a competency-based curriculum. In Australia, the CBC was introduced as a government directive in 1990. It resulted from observed weaknesses in the skills level of the Australian workforce following changes in the economy and the pace of technology. The United States of America adopted this system in the 1950s, focusing on the concern about low student achievement and poor quality of teacher training, promoting a need to structure outcomes of learning in a manner to encourage teachers to express their teaching objectives in terms of observable student behaviors.
The CBC started in the US in 1985. Now in the US, the curriculum is state-based. The national government gives the policies, then each state operationalizes the way they want. If you go to several states like California, Maine, and all that, they're following CBC.
The United Kingdom equally started to experience an economic recession which led to rising inflation and increasing unemployment predominantly for young people. Criticisms were directed at the educational system, arguing that standards of attainment in basic skills were too low, hence making many school leavers unemployable.
The UK is 4 countries, that is England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. In Scotland and Wales, they're following CBC. In England, they're following what they call outcomes-based education. Now, if you look at the challenges they have now with the outcomes-based education, it is fairly good, by the way, it is not a bad one. So, it means Nat was talking about what they don't know.
Kenya, just like the other countries, has made strides in construction of technical and vocational training institutions. The president is committed to have the TVET centers in every sub-county to provide technical skills to those who do not wish to pursue further education after the upper secondary school.
And then that in itself will not be enough for you to keep waving for the rest of your life, because those skills that you acquired 4 years ago will no longer be the ones that you need. So how do we then, as universities, make sure not only to equip you with that mindset of lifelong learning, but also to create opportunities for continuous reskilling of people? So university education will no longer be something that you do between 18 and 24 and you say, I'm done.
Being part of a good education system is empowering to any human being. It is part of what determines how our lives end up.
After establishing the government's intention to phase out the over 30-year-old 844 system and replacing it with the competency-based curriculum, the Riot Squad team can assert confidently that the CBC is the way to go. The CBC system itself stands out from the previous ones in Kenya. It does not only add to Kenya's superiority in the region, it also puts the country on the international map. This system is learner-driven. It reduces attention on examination and seeks to explore the greatest potential among the students. If CBC is well implemented, Kenya will boast of having the best education outcomes as other countries on the global arena, such as Finland and the United States. Kenya's workforce will be overhauled completely. Workers will be harboring skills and competencies that will enable them compete globally, but also make them fit for the jobs in the 4th Industrial Revolution era. But as they say, the proof of the pudding is in its eating. The efficacy of the CBC is a matter of wait and see.
Amka wende shule, elimu ndio msingi wa maendeleo. Karate, umekucha, amka wende kazi, jiepushe na uvivu, tujenge taifa. Uvivu ndio adui wa ujenzi wa taifa, jiepushe na uvivu, tujenge taifa. Ndugu yangu, umekucha, amka twende shamba, jiepushe